Welcome back to the Pioneers Sideline. We looked at the softball team. Now we're going to take a look at the baseball team. They were in action over this Easter weekend as well. We're going to take a look and see how they did. They went down south to Kentucky as well as they were playing a few games there. They had a 4-game series against Berea. We're going to take you the first 2 games right here with the Pioneers and the Mountaineers. Let's take a look and see how they did in the battle down there in Kentucky. The Pioneers, they go 2 for 2 in the first 2. 12-2 in the first game, 8-3 in the second. Now we're going to bring in our baseball analyst here, Phil Novotzik. And Phil, the Pioneers, they're starting to string together those wins. And you know what? First year in the KIAC, that's really what they need to just keep doing.
Yeah, after a bit of a shaky start there, Chris, we've seen them put together a bit of a quiet 7-game win streak so far. And, you know, they've gotten a lot of momentum. They finally have their pitching rotation set, which I think really brings a lot of consistency to the team as a whole. And then their lineup is finally starting to click as well. We've seen Don McDuffie settle into that leadoff spot really well. And, you know, everybody else on the team finally starting to step up. Marlon Leyva, he was struggling a lot early in the season, hitting sub-200. Just got Conference Player of the Week, though, last week, hitting .567. So you can't complain about that. Yeah,
Marlon Leyva, we'll definitely talk about that a little bit later as he did win KIAC Player of the Week. But they was 3 and Game 4 as well for the Pioneers. Let's take you out to Game 3. Pioneers trying to continue the winning success there. The Pioneers and the Mountaineers going down. Pioneers already 2-0 in the series. Make it 3 for 3 in the series there, Phil. The Pioneers win that one 7-5. Burko 2 for 4. 4 RBIs. Leyva 1 for 2 with an RBI. Spahn only goes 4 innings as he gives up 5 earned runs and has a strikeout. But you see that Pioneers move up to 14 and 11. 7 and 4 in the conference. And Phil, they're really starting to separate themselves from some of these other teams. Is now they go 3 for 3 in that series against Berea with only 1 game left. A real good way to get stuff done on the road.
Yeah, it took over that #1 spot in the conference over the weekend. And, you know, the one concern that the Pioneers should have right now is the struggles of Nate Spahn. They've continued as the season's gone on. We've seen flashes of the Nate we saw last year. But, again, last season, you know, he went 8-0. So it's been tough for the Pioneers so far with him on the bump, but he's a competitor. You know he's going to come back strong in the second half of the season.
Then there was Game 4. The Pioneers trying to complete the 4-game sweep against Berea. Let's take you to that score there and see how the Pioneers fared against the Mountaineers. Already winning the first 3. Pioneers trying to make it a complete sweep on Easter weekend, and they do it in authoritative fashion, winning 20-4. McDuffie goes 3 for 5 with 4 runs and 3 ribbies. Burko 2 for 3 with a run and a ribby. And the Pioneers move up to 15 and 11, 8 and 4 in the conference. And Phil, when you beat a team by putting up 20 runs on the board, you're really sending a statement to the rest of the conference. And that's what the Pioneers did against Berea.
Yeah, I mean, there's no part of that game that you can look at and complain about as a coach. I mean, 20-4, that is just sending a message to the entire KIAC that the Point Park from last season is back. And, you know, you look at those stats all the way down the lineup, guys are hitting the ball all over the park. They weren't cheap hits either. I mean, guys are hitting laser shots all over the field. And then to top that off, you look at the great pitching from Austin Presley. This is a guy that can throw in the low 90s. He struggled some early in the season with his control. As it's gone on, though, he's been able to spot up a lot better. And you see he's only going to get better as the season goes on.
Pioneers had one more game this past Monday and Salem International. They're going to win that one, too. And the Pioneers, they are just rolling along right now as we take you out to that score. The Pioneers keep rolling along as they win 17-9. McDuffie 4 for 5. You mentioned he's really fitting in that leadoff spot. Rob Novi a 5 for 5. And then Lopez goes 7 innings, only giving up 2 and getting 8 strikeouts. Phil, I mean, they were 11-11 at one point. Actually, 9-11, excuse me. They have won 8 straight games, and they are now just cruising along, defeating teams with relative ease.
Yeah, I mean, 37 runs in the last 2 games combined. That's unheard of in baseball. And you look at that lineup once again, nothing to complain about there. Rob Novi, I mean, that's a stat booster if I've ever seen one. 5 for 5, scoring a run, getting RBIs. He's just doing his job, and that's what we saw him do last year. That's why he won the overall team MVP last season, because he was so consistent at the plate, and we're starting to see that come back to him now.
And then you mentioned Marlon Leyva earlier. Marlon Leyva going to be the KIAC Player of the Week. You mentioned him batting over 500 for the week. The Pioneers really enjoyed that success there. Marlon Leyva named KIAC Player of the Week there again. And Phil, how big is that for the Pioneers to start getting these players named as Player of the Week? Because now they're really starting to click as that team and look like that team that won 50 games from last year.
Oh, it's huge without a doubt. I mean, Marlon is a guy that was a leader on the team last season, and from everything I've seen and heard from this year, he's really been hitting the ball pretty well, just happens to hit it right at people. But finally, last week we saw him break out and started to find some holes. He's a guy that when his confidence is up, he's impossible to stop at the plate.
Now, I might be nitpicking a little bit, but the pitching, we saw in a couple of those games, maybe a few more runs than that you'd really like to see out of your pitching staff. They're giving up 9 runs in that last one, but really canceled out by giving up 17. But really, the pitching staff, we've seen that a little bit this year, Phil. They've been a little bit of a roller coaster ride in what you're seeing out of this team.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a surprise, honestly, after seeing how well the pitching staff did last season. I think part of it may just be guys trying to fit into that role. We've talked before about the absence of Derek Peluso. He was a guy that really embraced that ace pitcher role. It takes a certain mentality to be able to perform under that kind of pressure, being the first game of the weekend. You know, you sort of set the tone for the entire series. And so I think we've seen Sean Clark start to embrace that a little bit more, but it's still a role he's not quite used to. I think everybody on the pitching staff is just getting used to what their job is on this team.
And moving forward, Phil, the bats are just tearing it up out there, but really a streak has to come to an end eventually. But the way they're hitting, they are just hitting the cover off the ball right now. I mean, is there really any way for them to stop?
I mean, right now, baseball is one of those sports where when you're hot, and it's something that as this team keeps going, it's like a snowball effect. One guy catches on fire, everybody else starts hitting the ball well. And that's what we've seen, and hopefully for the Pioneers' sake, it continues so they can start to even out that record after their tough start.
That's going to finish up our baseball analysis here. When we come back, you're going to see Tim Hardy come back. Phil's going to be staying with me here. We're going to get the road ahead for the baseball and softball teams. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on the Pioneer Sideline.